It's me, Paul Newman, back at it again with a new episode of the Boy Time Podcast, and as always, I'm joined by Babby.
Rawr.
Rawr. We have a slam dunk episode, as always. No news. So that's fun.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened in terms of news, I don't think. There was a sneak peek for Smiling Friends that was released, but I'm not watching it. I'll just wait a month for the show to come out and then I'll watch it. I already seen the first episode anyways. Other than that, I don't think anything of note really happened. I guess CinemaCon happened. Theoretically, I could have covered that, but if I remember right, there was like nothing that I was interested in, except I think the next Edgar Wright movie was announced there. It's a remake of an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie from the 80s, The Running Man, which I think is a Stephen King book. I don't know how you make a Stephen King book into an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie, but I guess they did it. But I will say, I know there's a lot of brouhaha around remakes these days. Honestly, if this is the way that remakes should be, because I think I would be pretty hypocritical to sit here and be like all remakes are bad when one of my favorite movies is The Thing, which is a remake of a 1950s sci-fi movie, which is not very good. And I think this is what you should be remaking: little, action or like 80s movies that like nobody talks about. I don't care if they remake RoboCop or The Goonies or anything like that, but you should be remaking bad movies that have like cool premises and then bringing it to the modern age and make it but good, which is what John Carpenter did, and there's a bunch of examples of that. So I'm pro Edgar Wright making a remake of The Running Man. I think it'll be pretty solid. Who knows who's writing it? I know that Edgar Wright is still working on that movie with Simon Pegg that Simon Pegg was kind of trolling everybody with interviews a year ago or so, but nothing about that yet. I think the biggest thing to come out of CinemaCon though was those cute pictures with Bong Joon-ho and Robert Pattinson. They just they just seem like good friends, and they were just kind of like goofing off on the red carpet. And it's nice to see Robert Pattinson smile. I'll just say that. Very frowny guy. And so I guess Bong Joon-ho is a funny, silly guy when he makes very serious movies that don't have a lot of comedy in them. Although I guess you could say Parasite is like a dark comedy, because there's definitely comedic moments there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. There was like a bunch of Disney stuff I don't care about, a bunch of Warner Brothers stuff I don't care about. I think George Miller was saying that they're going to be making more Mad Max movies after Furiosa, and that, quote, he's addicted to making them. Don't know what that means. But it's nice to see he's got his mojo back after making those Happy Feet movies. He seems to have a love for making movies, as opposed to Alex Garland, who in the lead up to Civil War was like, I'm done making movies. I've lost all my passion for it, which is unfortunate because I saw Civil War this weekend and it was great. It was funny because I got out of the theater to see Civil War and I got a text from our friend Grant, and he texted me that he was just leaving his theater seeing Civil War, which is funny because there's a 2-hour time difference. And I was like, that's kind of fun that we both saw it at the same time, 2 hours apart. That's kind of quirky and fun. But I'll talk about Civil War a little bit later. No spoilers, because
You can spoil it as much as you want. I'm not watching that garbage heap.
It's a good movie. I was a little bit reluctant going into it, but I think it's pretty good. I will say, I think think the politics surrounding it is not even really talked about in the movie. Um, I saw that. Well, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. Uh, yeah, because we'll do the hit double feature I did at the end. Well, I guess I'll just say that I am almost done with The Sopranos. I just finished season 5, and I'm calling season 5 Buscemi's Last Ride because Stephen Buscemi's in it, and that just makes me happy. Every time he was on the screen, I was like, yes, that's my man. I love Buscemi. And so that's why it's the best season so far, because Buscemi's in it. And Christopher cries. I don't know if that's a spoiler. He does cry. It's a very touching scene. So I just have one season left, but unfortunately, the last season of The Sopranos, I don't know if you know this, has 26 episodes. So it's going to take a minute till I finish it. But I will eventually. But I won't talk about it. I just want to announce to everybody that I'm almost done with The Sopranos. And that it's very good. I don't really remember what happened in the first 2 seasons, but from where I started, from where we left off to now, it's been very good. So there you go. Little Sopranos update for you guys. But the meat of the movie talk this week, we're going to be doing a Paul Newman double feature. I watched 2 classic Paul Newman movies. Not really any rhyme or reason for it. I just was like, I want to watch Cool Hand Luke. Because I don't know anything about it. But everybody talks about how great a movie it is. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And what I got, and I hope I don't disappoint everybody, but both of these Paul Newman movies, which are both classics, that like a bunch of people would have in like their top 10 movies of all time. At least Film Bros. Film Bros might even have it in their top 4 Letterboxd. But I really did not love Cool Hand Luke. I liked it, but you can tell that it was very influential. And maybe it was more, and it's not even like super original. I'll say maybe I'm not sure. I think it might be a secondhand influence, because I got a lot of The Great Escape in it, but The Great Escape is a prison movie, but it's a POW camp in World War II, and Steve McQueen is like riding a motorcycle to escape. It's very great, as you can probably assume from the title. And Cool Hand Luke is a very similar movie in that they both kind of have, both Paul Newman's character and Steve McQueen's character are both like rebels without a cause, and they just like, they have an indomitable spirit that nobody can break. And so like while I was watching it, I was like, this is like Shawshank, but kind of worse. Because Shawshank is a prison movie where Andy Dufresne has an indomitable spirit that can't be broken. But on top of that, there's also a really great like relationship between him and Red, Morgan Freeman's character. And Cool Hand Luke doesn't really have that. There's him and George Kennedy's character are friends, but it isn't, you know, you don't really come to love either George Kennedy or Paul Newman as much as you come to love Andy or Red and Shawshank. So it was just like, oh, this is like Shawshank, but kind of worse. I will say it maybe is like a better representation of like where America was when it was coming out. Because I think Cool Hand Luke came out early 70s. It's a prison in the South, and they're working at a chain gang. But what isn't like accurate representation of the times is that there's maybe one black prisoner in a southern prison in the 70s. Maybe they segregated the prisons. I don't know. They never bring that up. Um, but I mean, it isn't really a movie about that. It's just like Paul Newman escapes, and then all of the guards are like, "Hey, we're gonna break you, Paul Newman," and he's like, "I won't be broken. I'm a good old boy." So yeah, there's not a whole lot to say. To me, it was just kind of a mediocre prison movie, which there has been a lot of great examples of in the past, and that have come before and after. So this one was just like, oh, kind of dead on arrival, honestly. And similarly, I felt basically the same way about another classic movie, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Now, this movie has what Cool Hand Luke doesn't have, in that there is a really great relationship between Paul Newman's Butch Cassidy and Robert Redford's The Sundance Kid. Now, because we're with these guys pretty much the whole of the movie, and they have a really, uh, I was gonna say they have a good relationship. I don't really know why, why this is like regarded as like one of the best buddy action movies of all time, because I didn't think they had a whole lot of charisma together. They're both individually charismatic people. Paul Newman and Robert Redford are both very likable actors in pretty much everything I've seen them in. But for some reason, just the dialogue together just didn't fully convince me of their friendship. Um, in fact, like one of the first things we see is like they do a heist, and I was pretty much in. I was like loving the movie for like the first 20 minutes. They're doing like a train heist, and I'm pretty sure Red Dead Redemption did like borrowed some imagery from this movie when they did their train heist in chapter one of Red Dead 2. And I loved it. I'm like, ooh, a gang of outlaws. It's gonna be like a really fun buddy movie where they're all gonna be robbing trains and robbing banks. Like, okay, I like this. I like where this is going. But I will say, actually, Red Dead and Red Dead 2 borrowed a lot from this movie, because it's kind of doing the whole like the West is dead. And so here's this group of outlaws that are kind of butting up with a civilized West, or at least a West that is trying to civilize. Um, and so like basically they do like two bank heists or two train heists, and then they're basically on the run for the rest of the movie. And there's like basically the guy they've been robbing hired like the best trackers and the best shots, bounty hunters that they can hire. And so then they're on the run for like 30 minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is getting kind of boring, because it's just them running in the forest and the desert. And I don't know. It just like, I think we're supposed to be getting the impression that Butch Cassidy is like this kind of genius guy. He's the brains, and Sundance Kid is the like, he's the great shot. He's the, yeah, that's his role. But everything that Butch Cassidy does from the second train heist on till the end of the movie really fails. So I don't really know. Like, this guy kind of sucks. Like, I don't buy him for a second that he's like the brains of a criminal gang, because literally everything he does is being thwarted. But I think what the screenwriter was trying to do was to be like, well, that represents the like growing intense and growing intensity of like the law and the businessmen that are trying to weed out these outlaws. And it's like these outlaws are trying everything they can, but they're just failing because they're outmanned and outgunned and outsmarted. But what you need to do is maybe like, and I'm not usually one to advocate for longer movies, but have like an hour of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid like in their prime, like robbing stuff and having like smart, clever plans that go right. And so then once the West starts catching up on them and the law is gonna shoot them and whatever, that's when you can have them fail all the time. And then us as the audience is like, oh, okay. So they're like really in deep trouble because we know what Butch Cassidy is capable of. And therefore we know, oh man, every outlaw in the West is gonna get what's coming to them, stuff like that. I feel like I've been talking about screenwriting a lot, but I've just been noticing stuff in the movies I've been watching. Um, so yeah, that's how I would fix Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. But that's not even the worst of it, because they're on the run. Eventually, Robert Redford and his girlfriend are like, "Hey, we're gonna go to what? It's like a Central American country. I don't remember which one. I watched this like early. Uh, I watched this like on Thursday, so I don't really remember um, what Central American country. But they go to a Central American country, and well, Butch Cassidy is there too. But it's like, yeah, um, which again is something that Red Dead 2 borrows because they go to Tahiti. Famously, there's a whole chapter of that game where you go to Tahiti and it kind of sucks. Um, and similarly, the part in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid where they go to the Central American country also is kind of boring and not interesting because basically we get like 10 minutes of them going through their old shtick. They're starting to rob banks, and it's kind of funny because we see like Robert Redford's girlfriend was a teacher, and so she's teaching them Spanish, but specifically just the Spanish that they would use to rob banks. And so like there's like a montage of them like going out to restaurants and like them just like chilling out at their place and like they're just like she's like quizzing them randomly on different phrases that they would use to rob the banks. And that part's really funny. Um, but then it's just like 10 minutes of them robbing banks, and then they try to go straight, and that doesn't work. And then it's just like spoilers. I guess I should have prefaced the whole thing by saying spoilers, but spoilers. They just die in the end. Like the entire it seems like the entire army of like the Central American country like comes to kill them. Like they're utterly surrounded. They're trapped in a building, and it's like there's like a square in front of them, and then like all around the rooftops, and like the entire square is full of soldiers. And then they just die, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Um, yeah, I really didn't feel anything. I was just like kind of watching the minutes go by, like, okay, when is this gonna be done? Because I pretty much knew where it was going by the last 10 minutes, anyways. So, yeah, I was just like, it's the most mid movie, in my humble opinion. Um, I will say I gave it some points for like pretty good cinematography, which is something that is like a must in westerns for me, because you're shooting in arguably one of the most like beautiful settings in the world, like the kind of rocky desert mesa type area, which is a place I would not like to go because I hate the heat. But I mean, you can't argue it's like amazing natural landscapes. And so, like, when you're shooting a Western, you have to shoot it and shoot it well. Otherwise, you're getting points deducted. And this movie did it pretty good. Not the best, but pretty good. This is no like good, the bad, and the ugly. This is not like a spaghetti Western where they like really show the scenery or whatnot, but it's pretty good. So, yeah, I was very disappointed. I was like, I want to love Paul Newman movies because everybody loves Paul Newman. He's a very handsome man. And he has ranch, which is pretty cool. Everybody loves ranch, at least here in the Midwest. I don't, but I don't like mayo in general. So, Sorry. But he's a pretty good guy. He was in Cars. So I guess my favorite movie that Paul Newman has been in that I've seen is Cars, which is maybe unfortunate and maybe not something I should say out loud, but I haven't seen a lot of his movies. um, I might watch another movie where it was him and Robert Redford, The Sting. I was actually going to watch it a couple days ago, but Netflix was breaking for me. So I was like, whatever. I'll just watch The Sopranos instead. So that's what I did. So maybe I'll watch The Sting another time because that one seems it's like interesting. I think it's like they're both con artists in the 1930s on like pulling cons at like card games, and that I could see being pretty good. And the like 2 minutes I saw of it, very nice. The opening credits are great, and I will say, I am an absolute sucker when a movie starts that is like a movie that's like a period movie, maybe set 40 years ago, and they use the studio logos from that time. I don't know what it is about that, but that I'm like an absolute sucker for that. I know it's kind of corny and lame, but I think it's a really great way to introduce your setting and like the aesthetics of the setting by doing that. So, that's all I saw about of the Sting. So maybe I'll do it next week, but that's it for my little Paul Newman double feature. But that's not the only double feature I did, because a couple days ago, um, yeah, I guess my dad tells his coworkers that I like movies because my dad texted me and was like, "Hey, my coworker invited you to go see Civil War." And I said, "Okay, sure, I'll go see it." It's A24. It's Alex Garland, who is a filmmaker I respect. He's made very good movies like Ex Machina and Annihilation and 28 Days Later. He either made 28 Days Later or 28 Weeks Later. I'm not sure. It's one or the other. He didn't do both. Um, and so I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Plus, it has our man Jesse Plemons in it. Barely, but he's in it, and that's what's important. Um, but Kirsten Dunst was the lead, and I was like, okay, I like both of those people quite a bit. Kirsten Dunst is like one of my favorite actresses in the game. I think she's very underrated. And every time I see her in something, I'm like, wow, she knocked it out of the park. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. I know nothing about it except the borders. And I think that was like a big thing for people, was like, these borders don't really make sense. I think that was like the first thing they announced from the movie, was like A24 was like, here's the map of America in Alex Garland's new upcoming movie Civil War. And like everybody was talking about it. Like, oh, these borders are so unrealistic.
The first thing was the unrealistic borders, and then saying that the movie is not politically like anything. And I'm like,
It's
great.
there's not like a whole lot to it. I will say, I think it's not so much focused on politics as much as it is focused on wartime slash wartime photo journalism. It's
But
more
that is politics.
it is politics, and they do get into it, and they do get into it in the movie a little bit. I think less than what people wanted, but I think it isn't explicit. It's very it's implied what's going on, and it isn't like, I guess we can get into it, um, because I think maybe just setting up what the movie's about is important if we're going to get into the politics of it. Um, but what the movie is Kirsten Dunst and her partner. Like, I don't think they have a romantic relationship. I think they're just like work partners. They're taking a trip from New York City to Washington, D.C., in the middle of I don't know if it's said how long the Civil War has been going on, but it's at the tail end of it. By this point, I'm pretty sure that um, Noah Offerman is playing the president, which I just think is fun. He's barely in it, but it's just like nice to see him in things. Um, I'm pretty sure that like the Loyalist states, which is what their faction is called, is like the I think it's like the fascist alt right, like basically what like the current day alt right movement would be like 50, 60 years from now. Uh, just like further. Um, they don't really go into the specifics, which I think is what people are upset about. So I went with two people. Um, I don't think either of them uh, really are into like film in that way. In the way that like I am, and I don't mean that to be like pretentious. I just mean like I see a lot of movies, um, and I kind of can appreciate the subtle things. Whereas the guys I went and seen it with, they hated it, and they were like, I thought they were going to get way more into like what started it, and um, like the different factions and what they represent. Because that's not
The
really,
reason that makes Civil War interesting.
but that's not what this movie is. That's not what this movie's trying to say.
I guess that's my question: is what is it? Because it seems
Okay.
like action summer blockbuster garbage without any like purpose or intent.
So, yeah, it isn't an act. I mean, okay. It isn't an action movie or a war movie in the way that like a typical war movie is. This isn't like a 1917 or I'm trying to think of modern day war movies or like All Quiet on the Western Front. This isn't like war is bad. Uh, we're going to show the brutalities of war. Don't get me wrong, that's in there, but I don't think that's the purpose. Um, because basically what we're doing here is uh oh boy, I don't know if I'm smart enough to be talking about this, but um it's a little bit interesting because Kirsten Dunst and her partner are basically accompanied by like their mentor who's older. He's trying to go to I think South Carolina or North Carolina, one of them. Um, but like basically they're trying to get to Washington D.C. before the president is assassinated, or like because basically the Western forces, which is the faction that makes the least sense, if I'm being honest, which is California and Texas, are basically like whooping the loyalists, and like they're basically all the way up to DC. So like Kirsten Dunst and her partner are trying to make it to DC before this like siege on DC happens, so that they can interview the president, which hasn't been done in this whole civil war. Um, and like that's almost like oh boy, I should have thought about this a whole lot more. Oh, because I think like oh man, this movie is so big, and it's intense. Not in like a typical war movie, but uh, I'm all scatterbrained right now. I need to slow down. Let's get
Sounds
back.
like it reached the target audience.
Um, yeah, but it isn't stupid. It's not like a stupid war movie. I'll say that. Um, because I think it's interesting because her partner is from Florida, which Florida is its own thing, and it's like associated. It's not like seen as American. It's like seen as like Central America, which I guess, I guess. Maybe this is like a world where like Spain didn't cede Florida to the states, and so Florida was Spanish, because the her partner is like Hispanic and he speaks with like an accent, which doesn't necessarily mean that the country is like an ex-Spanish colony, or like kicked Spain out way later than it did or than we did when that happened. Um, but it could. Um, we just know that Jesse Plemons almost kills him because he's like, "Oh, you're Central American," which is just like hints. Um, I will say, I think there are things that are like I have issues with, because I think because it doesn't list out that the factions clearly. I think there should have been like a brief at the beginning where it's like, here's what's going on, because it doesn't even necessarily like show the map very much. There's like a couple times it's shown in the movie, but like we never really know what's going on. Now we know a little bit because of what Alec Garland has said outside. His justification for California and Texas being one nation is that, oh, they basically are like, okay, we're going to put our political differences aside because this fascist threat is, we can't basically fight this on our own. So we're coming together to basically kick out this fascist president, um, because we can't do it by themselves. It's not the greatest justification. Honestly, it still doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Because Texas would not work with anyone else. They don't want to work with anyone else right now, and there's not.
Plus, why would you work with someone who is not bordered by you for like states away?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. But again, the politics of it is not really the focus. And it is more about the journalistic side, because along with their like older mentor that comes with them, like there's a 15-year-old, a little girl, not a little girl, but a teenage girl comes along and she wants to be a photojournalist, and she like grew up seeing the photos that Kirsten Dunst would publish, and she's basically like, "Oh, you're my hero. I want to work under you." And the like moment to moment stuff with this movie reminded me a lot of like, and maybe also the like scenery reminded me a lot of like The Last of Us, just in that like everything is like ruined and torn apart. There's just like cars lining old highways that are all overgrown, and it's like this relationship between this kind of hardened um, journalist that is kind of like completely desensitized to all of the violence and basically everything. Like the whole conflict, she's just gone completely desensitized to it. And this like younger person who's wanting to get into this field, um, who is obviously like experiencing a lot of these things for the first time. And so there's a lot of stuff about like trauma and like stuff like that in relation to her character. Um, but it's also just kind of interesting because this Kirsten Dunst team kind of like follows around a lot of the different factions, even though they aren't like explicitly said which ones they are. But you can imply that the guys in the American soldier outfits that have patches that have all 50 states on the American flag are the loyalist guys, and then the ragtag people with no uniforms are the rebels in whatever city they are or whatever state they're representing. So it's kind of interesting because we're getting both sides, but um, I will say that the movie never frames the loyalists as the good guys. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do that. And they never are shown winning, which maybe is a problem, but I think the point of the movie is that, okay, well, these guys are so clearly on the back foot that they're kind of just like lashing out wildly. Kind of like Nazi Germany was at the very end, where they're like, ah, and then they all die. which is kind of the phase of where this movie takes place. Because the movie, spoilers, but I kind of already said it. This movie ends with the siege of Washington, D.C. And so basically, we're like right at the end of it. So I don't think it's just kind of a little period of like, this is what the end of a war like this would be like. Doesn't really matter what the sides are, except the bad guys are the fascists. Everyone else is trying to kill them. I'm fine with that. And I think the movie is not really, I don't think it's all that too concerned with making like this huge political message. It's just like more about like trauma and character studies, which it is really interesting seeing these like really hardened figures with these, less experienced ones. And there's some like horrifying imagery, especially surrounding the Jesse Plemons little encounter that they have. Yeah, that was something that me and Grant talked about a lot in our Snapchat conversation because, I mean, obviously we love Jesse Plemons here. Every time he's in something, it's like, hell yeah, he's the man. We all love Jesse
He's
Plemons.
always the bad guy.
He's always the bad guy, which is so weird because he's so likable.
He plays it so well, though.
That's true. I'll say maybe the only thing I've seen him in where he isn't the bad guy is Fargo season 2. I think he's like, isn't he just like a shopkeeper with Kirsten Dunst? I don't remember what's going on. I don't remember. I don't remember the specifics.
I remember a body in the freezer, but I don't know if he put it there or if I don't remember what happened.
Did he kill Kirsten Dunst in that show?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he killed somebody though.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's probably, you can probably make that assumption about 50% of Fargo characters.
True.
But yeah, it is funny because Jesse Plemons wasn't even supposed to be in this movie. I think Oscar Isaac was originally going to be in that role, which makes sense because Oscar Isaac is in Ex Machina and Annihilation. But I think Oscar Isaac had to back out like a couple days before they shot that scene. And Kirsten Dunst is married to Jesse Plemons because they met on Fargo season 2 and then fell in love on set. And she was like, "Hey, can you be the worst guy in the world in this fun movie that I'm doing?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, whatever." But I did see that like Kirsten Dunst was like, "Yeah, he probably wouldn't have done it if like I didn't ask him to, because like it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad." But I don't know. I will say, like, I think she's kind of overhyping it because it isn't like anything too crazy. He's just playing like a racist soldier.
Yeah, I mean, how many Nazi movies are there? World War II movies where it's just the most like awful thing you've ever seen over and over and over again.
Yeah, I was just like, well, Christoph Waltz. I don't think he was like, oh, this is emotionally devastating me to my core when he was playing that guy in Inglourious Bastards. Even though he's very scary in that movie.
That's a little different. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm trying to think. Something that has like no comedic things in it. I don't know who played the Nazis in Schindler's List. Maybe they felt bad about it. I don't know. I don't know enough about the production of Schindler's List. But yeah, it's a rough scene. And like, it's going to be rough going into it. Because it's like, well, everything we've seen about these loyalist guys is terrible. And they're just like making this mass grave and like we see them. And it's like, oh, well, shit. we have to do something. We have to have some sort of interaction with them. And they're making a mass grave and we're journalists and they don't want to publish that. Or they don't want like their activities in the news. So it's gonna be bad. And it is. But I thought it was pretty enjoyable in terms of like I don't know. It was just like an angle in a war movie I haven't seen before. Especially, it's a genre that I don't really like. I I don't even know if there's a war movie that I like. 1917 is maybe the closest thing, and I don't really. I don't, it was fine. It's well done, but it's like, I don't know. I don't really care. Maybe Saving Private Ryan is pretty good, but I don't think I would ever say I'm in the mood for a war movie. I'm just gonna throw one of those on. So I don't know. I thought Civil War did it pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like the marketing of this movie was the worst part about it
Yes.
because I think it's fine as a concept,
Yeah.
but I feel like you should at least have someone on your team that makes the world building make sense because to me it
Yeah.
seems really jumbled and nonsensical and then you try to make it serious and it's not going to work. I feel
Correct.
like the Civil War format could be incredibly interesting if you
Mm,
have someone that kind of understands how this stuff works.
yeah.
Because what I'm hearing is that they basically like watch CNN for 2 hours and they're like, this is how this would happen because it's not their
Maybe.
primary motive of the movie. But I think that's what turned so many people off about it and what made it seem so like weird and off. I don't know. I would never
Yeah.
go see it because like that map in the first press release where they said we made our movie non-political and a movie about Civil War, I was immediately like, I'm never watching this. This is gonna be so bad.
I'll say it's political a little bit, but it isn't.
But
That's not
not
like the
like
main thing. No.
yeah, and by political I mean just correctly like laying out how states would do this, how
Yeah.
things would react, how factions would split up. I
Sure.
mean, if we're being real, I don't think there ever will be another civil war in the US, but like I'm not even looking for that level of analysis. I'm just looking for something that at least makes sense.
Sure.
I think isn't there a line in the movie about an Antifa massacre or something?
Yeah, because that's like basically there's like a quiet moment between the young chick and Kirsten Dunst, and Kirsten Dunst's like first picture that got her on the map is like, and I will say it was really corny when she said it. It was something like,
Yeah.
"You're the one that took the legendary Antifa massacre picture." And I'm like, nobody fangirl. Like, what are you talking about? Nobody's like that to
The words
photographer.
Antifa massacre are hilarious to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Antifa is barely even a real thing. I
No,
don't know. It seems very like, you know,
yeah,
I don't pay attention to politics and I watch CNN maybe like once a month type thing.
yeah. And I
But
mean,
I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm glad the
I
movie
enjoyed it.
wasn't literally about
No,
the Civil War at that notion, because I think if it was, it would have failed at every single account,
yes,
just given like what I've seen and what you've described about this movie, because it seems very sixth grade in its politics.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's all fair. And Alex Garland is an English guy. I don't know why this was his idea.
Yeah, it's just weird because Ex Machina is really great,
Oh yeah.
and I feel like that is incredibly nuanced and great in
Hmm.
its like world building and the way they set stuff up. And then just seeing like this come out, I was like, what on earth?
Yeah, and I think some of that is like, why is this your next step? Like,
Yeah,
you're an English guy, you don't live in America, why are you trying to make this thing about an American Civil War?
right. And it shows that you don't know it, but
Yeah.
somebody on your crew should know it and help you write that.
Yeah. I that's true. That is all true and fair. You know, if Spike Lee wanted to make a Civil War movie, that might be the only person I trust. Honestly, I don't know who else
I don't know
would
who
make
I
one
trust
like
with
that.
that.
um, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it would just be like some random guy, some up and comer who's like a weird little communist guy. They could probably do it.
They
But
would never get a movie.
no. No. It would play in like small indie movie theaters,
Yeah,
and it wouldn't have like this scope to it. Like they get like
no.
a lot of like they have like real tanks and
We get
war
we get
machines.
Disco Elysium and pretty much nothing else. So
That's true. That's true. That's the one
and
thing.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would recommend it. I thought it was pretty good. I don't think it's you know world changing. Doesn't
No, yeah. I just need to air my grievances because I had
that's fair.
many
That's
with this
fair.
movie.
That's fair. Yeah. But I don't know. I think I may have done this movie a little bit of an injustice because I did 30 minutes after I got out of this movie, I saw Shrek 2. Um,
A good
so
movie.
uh, they're both good movies, but one is significantly better. And the better one is Shrek 2.
We should make a Shrek Civil War.
That
Well,
should be
that's kind
Shrek
of the
1.
fourth one almost. So
Oh, that's true.
isn't there like ogres fighting other things?
Yeah, it's yeah, because Rumpelstiltskin is like hunting
Yeah,
down all the ogres. So the ogres are
yeah,
fighting
ogre
against them.
genocide.
Yeah. Shrek Forever After is actually a deep political statement about the terrors of genocide. That's what I took away from
Truly,
Shrek 4. And I don't I honestly don't remember much about that movie. I saw it once when it came out in
I don't
theaters.
either. Yeah,
But Shrek 2, perfect movie.
real.
Every once in a while I look at my letterbox and I see it there in the 5 stars. I'm like, is it really that good? You know, it's up there with like Do the Right Thing and like The Shining. Is it that good? Yeah, it is. It's really good. And here's what I'll say, because, you know, I've been revisiting some of the Pixar movies, and I got a bone to pick with Toy Story 4. First of all, it didn't need to exist. But second of all,
I was gonna say that's the first thing.
it gets the messaging completely wrong, where Shrek 2 hits it right on the money. Because here's where Shrek, not, I was about to say, well, here's where Shrek 4 goes off. Shrek 4 goes off almost immediately. But
True.
Toy Story 4, because the whole thing, I don't know how much you remember about Toy Story 4 because it's pretty forgettable. But they're at a thrift, like an antique store, and there's a doll that has like a voice box that is broken. And so she kidnaps Woody to be like, hey, give me your voice box or else I'm going to kill this spoon guy. And the reason that she wants a voice box is because the antique store owner has a granddaughter who this doll desperately wants love from. She wants to be that kid's toy. And because she has a broken voice box, the kid isn't interested. And so she thinks if she changes for this kid, then she will get the love and respect that she so desperately wants. And so Woody's like, okay, fine. You can take my voice box if it'll make you, if it'll, you know, get you what you want. Because, you know, the little girl that I'm with doesn't even like me. She likes a spoon more than she likes me. And so the doll gets a new voice box, and then the kid comes into the store, and wouldn't you know it, she still isn't interested, even though she's changed for the girl. Isn't that a good message that you shouldn't change for people? Uh, you know, for someone that you want, like either in a relationship or a friendship. You shouldn't want to, you know, if you do change yourself, maybe they still don't care. So don't change yourself and you'll find someone eventually. But the movie is utterly, they fall on their face because at the end of the movie, there's a girl that's lost at the fair. And then Woody's like, go on, girl, go on, doll. Why don't you go save that girl? And the girl only likes the doll because the doll has a voice box. So therefore, the message of the movie is you definitely should change for people in order to find friendship or relationships or whatever. And I just feel like that's really busted. And when I was watching Shrek 2 this time, I was like, why, how did Shrek get it right on the money when a movie that came out like 10 years after, like, utterly falls on its face in like the messaging? Because the whole thing in Shrek 2 is that Shrek is trying to change because he thinks that Fiona doesn't love him for him. So he's like, I'll change for Fiona. And so then he does. And when he eventually rescues Fiona at the end of the movie, she's like, I love you for you. You shouldn't change to be with me. and therefore the message of you shouldn't change for people is set in stone. Everyone dances because it's a movie from the 2000s, and every single animated movie from the 2000s ends in a dance. Also, the Scooby-Doo movies, the live-action Scooby-Doo movies end in a dance.
True.
It was just a thing. We just have to accept that as a culture, that for some reason that was a thing.
No, it wasn't always a bad thing. It got bad.
That's true. It just feels weird when it's like
It does feel weird.
it's maybe my one fault of the movie, and it's not even that bad of a fault. But it's like there's this really heartwarming moment with Shrek and Fiona where like they don't change and then they transform and then they hug and kiss and it's a big happy ending. And then just Puss and Donkey start singing Livin' La Vida Loca. And I'm like, this just feels a little out of place. I like the song. Antonio Banderas and Eddie Murphy are talented singers. But it's just like, I don't know. I don't know. It's maybe the one thing that I feel like has aged in that movie. Otherwise, it's timeless. Except for all of the pop culture references. Although I will say, there's a big OJ sequence, or an OJ reference in Shrek 2, and now it's more prescient than ever now that he croaked. Which is a reference to Shrek 2. That because there's a frog.
And he croaks.
He does croak. But there's like
in
this
a very manner.
Yeah, that's true. He croaks in Shrek 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he croaks in Shrek 3 because it starts and then like Shrek is like being pampered to be like the heir to the kingdom because he married Princess Fiona, so he's being set up to be the king, and it's not going well, as you can imagine. There's a lot of hijinks. But then they're like, "Oh, we need to see you, Shrek," and he's like, "Why? Who died?" And then it cuts to the frog in his deathbed, which is maybe the only funny part in that
It's
movie.
the best cutaway gag.
It is. It's pretty good. That part and the marching band at the high school playing All Star are the only good parts of that movie. And that nightmare sequence traumatized me when I was a boy, and it's still very scary. So that's my thing on Shrek. That was just what I noticed this time around. I pretty much know that movie like the back of my hand, but I've been thinking about Toy Story 4 and it's been making me upset. So I wanted to make that comparison live on TV.
Broadcast
on broadcast television. But I think that's it. That's all I have for me. It's time now to throw it over to Bebby for his segment of the show.
Wow. It's storming, so hopefully my mic doesn't pick it up. Had a couple of things this week. We'll start with, I think I only listened to one single this week. There was probably more singles that came out, but I didn't listen to them. We got a new one from, okay, it's stacked. Your Old Droog, Method Man, and Denzel Curry with Madlib Production.
Whoa.
On DBZ.
Okay.
It's pretty great. They're all barring out. Method Man still sounds like he did on the Wu-Tang records, which is crazy. Denzel probably has the best verse on the track. He's just got a different energy than these two.
Yeah.
Your Old Droog does fantastic, as he usually does. Madlib definitely didn't give them the best beat. I mean, it's still a good beat, but like by Madlib standards, this isn't anything too crazy. But it's still a banger of a track. It's still one of the best hip hop tracks of the year. I think there's always a track or two every year that's just like an incredibly stacked lineup. But yeah, goes over pretty well. Denzel had some, I wouldn't say shots. People were initially there's a lot going on, so people are like on high alert. So people thought there was like a Drake and a Kendrick diss in that track. I don't think there was. I think he's just being competitive. I don't think Denzel is picking sides.
No.
He's just one of those guys that wants to rap, and I think he would do really good in a beef if that ever does pop up. Um, but yeah, really great single. We have a couple of albums this week, both of which I had no idea about until they dropped.
Oh,
Um, First one we will talk about. We'll talk about Shabaka Hutchings. Um, this is his, I believe, first record. I knew about him because he did the live instrumentation on the last Arm& Hammer record,
mm,
Diabetic Test Strips, which is crazy that there's live instrumentation on a record that sounds like that. But he does a lot of the flutes and stuff on there. Um, and this is his first record. So spiritual jazz fans are eating good this year. Um, we got the More Mother one earlier this year, which I really, really, really love. And then we also have this Kamasi Washington one coming out soon. This is kind of the same lane. It's spiritual jazz. He also kind of traded the sax for flutes, kind of Andre style. A lot of African flutes in here. I think he also um, he's like a very traditional, like classically trained musician, I believe. Um, and he has picked up like the Japanese style of flute, so you get a lot of that in this record.
oh,
Um, and the thing that drew me to it was this stacked track list. So we have Moses Sumney, Saul Williams, Elucid, Floating Points, and Leon the Havas. Uh, that's a crazy track list. Um, and I think it gives enough like variation on this record where like it flows really well for a spiritual jazz record. Usually they are so very kind of, I don't want to say formless, but they're very spacey to a point where like tracks don't really make sense and you kind of just put on the thing to listen to it in full, which is great. But I do like how this one is a little bit more split up and you can tell these different moments are a little bit more memorable. Um, but yeah, the flutes are fantastic on this thing. Um, just the way these tracks flow, they're super interesting. I feel like sometimes with spiritual jazz it gets a little bit too mundane for me, but there's a really great texture in these. The flute playing is very similar to Diabetic Test Strips, and I love the flute playing on that record, so it works really well. Um, I think the use of features is a huge standout here because you have fantastic voices like Moses Sumney and Leon the Havas, but they're not doing verses; they're doing vocalizations the with the track. So they're just kind of vocalizing with the flutes and everything else going on. So you just get these beautiful vocals just everywhere, which is fantastic. Um, yeah, it's a really great record. Elucid's verse is kind of crazy because it is just switchboard from Diabetic Test Strips, but it's reworked into a spiritual jazz track,
oh,
um, which still works. I think that verse is so free flowing and just wild that I think it just works for a lot of these different types of music. It almost works better on this, but the instrumental for switchboard is such a chaotic thing that it's almost plays ambient like this does. Um, but really good kind of like spoken word verses from him on there. The track with Floating Points is incredible. I think Floating Points, his work with Pharaoh Sanders on that record from 2021 is incredible. That's still one of my favorites. And he does really, really good on this one. It's weird because like electronics and jazz can play really well, but he does it in such a subtle way where it feels like they're like made for each other. Um, if you have not heard the Pharaoh Sanders and Floating Points record Promises, you should definitely do that. That is like, I don't care who you are, that record is fantastic. The kind of movements that that record goes through. Living with Eska is also fantastic. This is definitely where the Japanese influence kind of takes over with these flutes, and that's a really, really, really nice track as well. So yeah, very surprised by this thing. I think it's fantastic. I pretty much put it in the same area as that More Mother one. So now I have two spiritual jazz records in my top five this year.
all
It's
right.
really crazy. Um, we still got Kamasi Washington coming. But yeah, definitely check it out. I would say underrated at this point because he doesn't really have much else in his catalog. But yeah, if you it definitely if you listen to that Test Strips record from last year, you will probably enjoy this because a lot of those same tones from the woodwinds are on this thing. So yeah, check that out. Next we have another. Well, this is a new artist that I have not really heard about, um, but critics are living, so I'm not too sure what's up with that. I think it just might be one of those things where British publications are all over it. Um, but this is English Teacher with This Could Be Texas. I believe this is another group out of the windmill scene in the UK. The windmill scene being this kind of post-punk revival that Black Country New Road and Black Midi kind of grew out of, being the two big bands that came out of that scene. But there's a ton of them over there. I believe Squid is kind of closely related to that as well. So a lot of those bands are kind of in the same area over there. There's kind of a movement happening over there that's been really cool to follow. Um, I've listened to a lot of groups that have kind of come out of there. A lot of them are okay, but none of them really hit the threshold of a Black Mini or a Black Country New Road. But this record gets closer, which is good. Um, Definitely more on the post punk forward side, but mixes in a lot of cool indie and art rock stuff. Um, Kind of a cross between, I would say, Black Country New Road, both albums, and then some Radiohead stuff. Um, but they have a really fantastic vocalist. She does really great. She has a really nice, like, kind of soulful delivery, which adds really a lot to these kind of more, I feel like, home style countryside kind of instrumentals that the scene kind of pumps out. Um, it's a pretty tight record. 13 tracks with 50 minutes. It goes in a lot of different areas, and a lot of them work pretty well. There's definitely some rock bangers on here, and then ones that are just like straight up post punk that are still a lot of fun because she brings like a great energy to these lyrics. Um, I still don't think it reaches the high of anything Black Midi or Black Country New Road has done. Um, but I mean, she has influences on her sleeve, but I feel like this group is able to grow out of it a little bit and still make some exciting music that isn't too reminiscent of what you'd get from those two. Um, yeah, definitely need to listen to it more, but something like Nearly Daffodils and R&B and Albert Road are really, really great. Um, it's just a really fun record to listen to. So if you need some post punk slash rocky stuff, definitely throw this one on. I think you'll enjoy it quite a bit. Um, yeah, I'll listen to it more, but there's definitely a couple songs in here that are the best I've heard this year. So there's that one. I think that was it for new albums this week. I did listen to one other one finally. I don't remember if I had this on my wheel. I don't think I did, so I did it. Um, but this is a record that comes up on Spotify after like every single shoegaze record I listen to, and I finally just gave up and listened to it because it's been happening for like a year now. So I listened to Series and Calypso in the Deep Time by Candy Claus. This is a 2013 shoegaze record. So before the revival was like really popular. Um, and it's a really great record. It definitely has its own kind of a quirks being shoegaze in the 2010s. It reads like a uh, Nurture kind of feels to me like a video game soundtrack, peaceful kind of record. This kind of does the same thing to me, except it's got this really great fantasy video gamey element to it. Um, but it's incredibly distorted. It's a really positive and fun shoegaze experience, which you don't really get a lot of. Usually, that brightness is kind of like mixed with melodrama, and that's kind of what makes the genre what it is. Um, but this one, it's just buzzy guitars and synths and really great electronics into these like very like I don't know. It's very video game soundtracky in games that are like really bright, where you can explore nature and go on like fantasy quests and that kind of thing. It just has a really great soundtrack feel to it. Um, it's a magical record. I listened to it a couple times. It's definitely still hard to pick out things because it is so covered in noise and distortion that a lot of these mixes become just like so blasted with sound you can't make out, too much of it. Um, but it's a really, really fun experience. It's definitely more psychedelic than most shoegaze records get. And the fact that like it kind of just doesn't let you go and it takes you in all these different journeys and paths. I mean, you could have like a water level in here, you could have a mountain level, you could have a cave exploration level. It goes everywhere it can. Um, so yeah, it's a really great record if you're into shoegaze or any kind of like more PC music stuff. Definitely reminds me a little bit of like I believe Yule is the artist. Their record from last year, Soft Scars, that kind of has this same kind of like more electronic internet shoegazy type vibe to it. Um, so kind of in that realm, but very, very good. It's a really fun, warm listen, and I've been jamming it since it's been warm outside. So yeah, check that one out. I'm glad I finally got to it. But I think that's all from new stuff. stuff this week. We'll talk Gambino.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Gambino. Um, he did a what is it? He did some kind of live, I think last night. So this is brand new stuff. Um, and I don't know if he previewed any new music, but he essentially said he has two albums, and they're gonna be the last Gambino albums. Whether I believe that, I don't know. Um, I feel like he's just gonna go to the Donald Glover alias once he's done with this.
Oh, could
Um,
be.
but we have two records coming. One is Ada Vista, and one is Bando Stone in the New World. This is so Gambino coded.
Okay.
So Ada Vista appears to be the finished version of his last record, which is the 315 2000 or 2021. Um, so it seems to be updated and finished. The track list is shorter, so I'm guessing it's more cleaned up. The songs have names. Everything seems packaged up. So we'll be getting that, which I am excited. I don't know. I have the rare opinion that I think 31520 is really good. I think it's a very experimental kind of weird dive into all the styles he's done, and I feel like most of them work out pretty well. I remember this album coming out like right at the beginning of COVID, um, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think the styles on here were really great. Um, but I think the replay value got hit because like there's like two tracks with names on it, and the rest are just timestamps, so you can't really like replay it unless you like go through the whole record. Um, and you have blank cover art. There's no like it was just a random drop with no rhyme or reason. I think with this one, he's cleaning it up. He's giving it more of a, I don't want to say marketing, but like purpose and artwork and everything to go with it. Um, so I'm excited for it because I do like that record, and I think obviously this should be a better cleaned up version of it.
Yeah.
So excited for that. This Bando Stone in the New World record. I think this is a soundtrack for a movie that he's making,
Yeah, that's what I've
also
been
coming out
seeing.
soon. Yeah. Um, so I'm not sure what level of soundtrack we're getting, if it's one that completely complements the movie, or if it's just going to be like a typical soundtrack where it's like, I don't really care that much about this. Um, but we will see. So I'm excited. Um, I think Gambino is very solid in his musical output. I definitely don't think. I think he's overhyped a little bit. I think "Awaken My Love" is great, and I think 31520 is good. And I think because the internet is very solid, definitely hyped up a little bit too much. But some people would
Oh,
kill me for saying that. And Camp is awful. So uh,
that's the only one I see vinyls of. I see vinyls for Camp and
it's
Awaken My Love.
it's really bad.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that stuff will be coming this year allegedly. So I'm excited for that. We still have to do Awaken My Love. We've had it on the wheel since we've started. And you've had the vinyl since we started.
That is true.
Um, we'll get to it one day. I don't know. I haven't revisited Gambino's music like a lot at all in the past couple of years, so I'd be excited to see what he's cooking up. Okay, let's talk. This is a boy time drama hour, I guess. We'll just do this segment as
Oh boy. It's tea time.
it's tea time. Okay, where do I start with this? So Drake responded. I'll start with that, and then we'll backtrack.
Oh boy.
I don't have any of this written down. This is all just going to be like off dome and how I remember things happening. Um, so Future and Metro Boomin released their second album named "We Still Don't Trust You," which is funny. Um, this is 3 weeks after "We Don't Trust You," which came out on the 22nd. And it's a completely new album. It's 25 songs on top of the original album that has 17. Um, from what I'm hearing, it's not nearly as good, which I could kind of expect. Um, but a lot of the features on this thing were surprising. We have The Weeknd on here like 3 times, but J. Cole is on this album, which is really funny. um, I think this verse was recorded like 2 months ago, so it doesn't have anything to pertain to what has been happening with this so-called beef that isn't really a beef, and is just really weird at this point. It was just funny because people saw J. Cole on there like Did you switch teams already? Um, it is just really funny that you include that song on there. But you also had ASAP Rocky. Lil Baby was on here, but nobody talked about Lil Baby at all. I feel like Lil Baby has just become someone that has just completely fallen
Yeah.
down. Same with Roddy Ricch. Those two have just disappeared from the public eye completely, um, which is really strange.
Poor Roddy
I
Rich.
remember when Roddy Ricch had the number one song in the world for like 2 months randomly. Um, but basically, there are shots being thrown all on this record. ASAP Rocky gets into Drake. The Weeknd gets into Drake.
Oh, The Weeknd.
Uh, oh yeah, The Weeknd hates Drake.
I thought that they like made stuff together back in the day.
The Weeknd pretty much made most of one of Drake's best records.
Oh,
And by that I mean he wrote most of it.
oh,
Drake tried to sign The Weeknd to OVO, but that would have been an awful contract, and The Weeknd would like not be a household name at all.
yeah, true.
So there's a lot of beef between them because of a lot of the shady stuff that OVO was trying to do with The Weeknd. Um, so that is the most like, you have The Weeknd on there 3 times, something's gonna happen. Um, but you get this record that is basically like the only purpose of this existing is to throw more shots from what I'm seeing, which I don't think is a good move because now you've just messied all this up and you can give Drake an out by saying everybody's ganging up on him when this originally was just Kendrick throwing out a verse into the universe, seeing what happens, and just spiraled everybody out of control. Which again is crazy that a 40-second verse can just set everything on fire. I think that's something to be aware of throughout this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But so that came out, made a little bit of a splash, and then Drake eventually responded. I think on Saturday, the 13th. He responded, but he didn't officially respond, and this is like one of my issues. Is like the disc got leaked. An earlier version got leaked that was bad quality, and then a newer version got leaked with a replaced beat and like CD quality. Who leaked this? I don't know how this could possibly be leaked. I think Drake has a studio in his house, and he'd probably be the only one in there with a producer. So I think the running theory is Drake leaked this himself to like get a read for how people were feeling about it, and then updated it as it went.
Oh,
And he
that could
still has
be.
never officially released it,
Mm,
but it's real and it's out there. So I'm going to dock points for that and not just like standing on business and releasing the song. I'm glad he did a song because that's what we all wanted. But I feel like you just need to release it because especially there's been AI fakes going around of Drake disses and Kendrick disses.
yeah.
So this whole thing is getting muddied up because people have to like think if it's AI or not and like go into all these things and reach out to people close to both of them to like confirm if this is real or not, which is really stupid. You just need to release it on YouTube or SoundCloud or something. I don't care if you can't clear samples because you wouldn't be able to in most diss tracks, but please do something to make it official because this is just muddying the waters and getting really, really messy at this point. I've
Yeah.
seen like 4 Kendrick leaks and they've all been like incredibly fake. I would think Kendrick with his camp, they would just release a YouTube video. I feel
Yeah.
like that's the biggest thing that they do. I think that's how the Heart Part 5 kind of did it too. And that just blew up off of that. So I wish Drake would have done the same thing instead of doing this kind of like, oh, I'm dropping it, but I'm not really dropping it. I'm not going to tell you, but oh, there it is. Oh, it got out there. Um, but the actual track I thought was really good. The the track is good, and that's why I have a problem with Drake is because he can do this, but he just chooses not to for most of his work, and that makes me really mad because a lot of his albums are just incredibly mediocre and bloated and uninspired.
Yeah.
But when he's actually like hyped up to do something like this and does it, he does really well. Now to say I don't know if Drake wrote this thing, I don't know how many writers were involved in helping him do this. So a lot of caveats with that as well because we don't even know because we know he uses a lot of writers. I mean, so does Kanye. The big thing is Drake was using ghostwriters. That's a big no-no, especially when he gets in this many beefs with people.
Yeah.
But I thought the track was really good. He definitely got at most people. He did use the like, "Oh, you're ganging up on me" thing, which that's the issue of Future and Metro Booming doing that. I feel like that was a little bit too much. I just wanted a clean Kendrick and Drake 101, but J. Cole already kind of butted in and like really, oh my bad guys, and just dropped out,
Yeah.
um, and kind of ruined himself a little bit on that. Um, but yeah, I think it was really good. He had like a couple of lines for Metro Boomin, which was funny. Um, the earlier version of the diss I thought was really good because like the stuff he went at with Rick Ross, because he went at Rick Ross too on this. Um, he went hard at him. He had a line about like worrying about what he did with Diddy, but then he took it out. Um,
Coward.
so yeah, I'm like, man, that would have like destroyed him.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I can look up the genius so we can get into a little bit more. But I thought the shots at Kendrick were actually good, and I think they are very valid. And I'm glad that like someone was at least able to take a solid shot at Kendrick. I feel like we haven't had that before,
Yeah.
um, which is but I think Kendrick is still just gonna like you know absolutely obliterate him whenever this thing comes out, which should come out any second, I would think. I mean, Drake waited 3 weeks to do this, and now he's posting on Instagram saying they're too slow to reply, and it's been less than 48 hours. Um, so I don't know. I'd imagine Kendrick would have something already kind of started. It's like this thing has been happening for a decade at this point. But we'll see. This is just kind of the back and forth of how it goes with these things, except this one's really muddied because AI can just do everything now, and now people are like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Um, but the big things about Kendrick, first of all, he insulted his height. We already knew that was going to happen.
That's very
It's
funny.
still lame. It wasn't even funny. It was just like,
No.
okay.
Okay, cool.
If that's all you had, I would have said that's bad.
Yeah.
But the whole drop and give me 50 chorus of the track was really great. Basically saying that Kendrick's contract he signed into at Top Dog was a really bad contract because he signed it at 19 and his
Mm.
splits for his albums are 50-50. So he's not really getting a lot from it, and Top has taken a lot off the top, literally. Um, he also had great lines about like he he did that and then he's like Top kind of owns you because he's like uh Maroon 5 needs a verse, do that. Taylor Swift needs a verse, go do that. I think that's a great call out with all these like really really weird popular pop songs that Kendrick remixed on. um you know Solid. I enjoy that. It was clever, it's funny. um Good interscope lines. I think, especially with this whole extortion angle with Top that he's going, and like the way he's kind of like divvying up how his splits happen, and that he's kind of getting used by all these labels. I, I really like that angle. I think you can definitely say the same thing for Drake though, because at some point he was on like 3 or 4 splits with labels
Sure.
for a couple of records. Now he's not, and Kendrick isn't either anymore.
Yeah.
So it's it's still good points. I mean, it's not like incredibly relevant to like just the second because Mr. Morale was the last thing on TDE and he finally got out of that. Um, but I still think it's a good thing to bring up because what do you bring up when you're against Kendrick? There's not really a lot of dirt I don't think he has on him. Um, Not that we know of, at least. He says he has a lot more. We'll see if he really does once Kendrick responds. Um, but so that was really good. He said he's not big three because his Travis Scott and 21 Savage are more popular. I whatever. I don't think
Is
that's big
SZA
three.
in that conversation? She's not
No,
really a
SZA actually
rapper.
posted and was like, "Why leave me out of it?"
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I didn't really, but the "What's a Prince to a King? He's a Son" line is phenomenal. Triple entendre coming out of there, referencing the Michael Jackson and Prince line that Kendrick had, and
Oh
like
yeah.
that. Michael Jackson's son is named Prince Jackson, um, and then yeah, it's a great line. I love it. Um, yeah, it's interesting because like this is what Drake can do, but he just never does it except when he's in these stupid beefs. And it's like, why don't you just make records with this kind of energy? Um, I always like hold out hope where he's like, he's got to do something. He gets like a couple good songs a year, and that's it. Um, he also had a Bodyguards, Whitney double entendre. He did call out Kendrick's wife by name, which is a no no. last time Drake called out somebody's spouse, the story of Adidon got dropped on him. So I'm surprised he didn't learn from that. Um,
Yeah, that's true.
but we'll see. Definitely a threat, which probably won't be taken lightly. Um, he did call him a midget, which was something. Uh, yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah, the lines on Rick Ross again are great. I think Rick Ross is an easy person to go at because Rick Ross was a correctional officer before he became a rapper.
Mhm.
So he's basically a prison guard and then stole an entire gangster persona and just ran with it. Um, so I think it's easy to go at Rick Ross for that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was a really good diss track. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The DJ Academics sample was stupid. I don't think you needed to put that in there, but whatever. Um, yeah, I think it's a good response. I think it took a long time, and I think not dropping it officially is weird, but Drake is weird, and that's what he's probably going to do. Um, he's been doing Instagram captions and all that garbage, which is what he usually does, anyways. But yeah, good record. I will give credit where credit is due. I'm not gonna be like, oh, this Drake just sucked, because this is what we want out of the beef. We want good music coming between all these artists.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. Um, Between Kendrick and Drake, it's gonna be a little bit more personal than like the whole J. Cole triple threat that was happening before, because there is no beef between Kendrick and J. Cole. J. Cole just took it as like a challenge, I suppose, because people wanted him to, and then he was like, "I'm not built for this," and it was really embarrassing. I'm still never gonna forgive him for that. Um, but yeah, so Drake dropped that, and then Rick Ross 6 hours later responded with a song already,
Oh.
um, which was he just had it ready to go,
Okay.
which was kind of insane. So
Wait, was Rick
respect
Ross
to Rick
involved?
Ross. Yeah, yeah.
When
He
when
inserted himself on the last or on the new Future and Metro Boomin album. I think Rick Ross was on it,
Oh,
and
okay.
then Drake fired at him, and then Rick Ross immediately shot back.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
which it's an okay diss track. I definitely have issues with it. Um, it's funny because Rick Ross can't talk about he can't like correct the correctional officer comments because that's literally it's well documented and there's pictures. Um, I mean, the song flows well. It's got a really cool beat. His flow and everything is great. Um, and most of the shots he takes at Drake, I think, are pretty good. There's a couple where I'm like, really, these aren't really that great. Um, I think the biggest one that was like, huh, was
Did you do that on
claiming that
purpose?
Drake got a nose job.
Oh,
No,
I thought you were doing the
that
oh.
was good. Oh,
Yeah.
that was unintentional, but that was good. Um, yeah, he claims that Drake got a nose job
Oh.
to hide like his wide nose because he's insecure with his because he's mixed and has a white mother. That was the intention of it. Um,
Oh.
but Rick Ross just ended up looking like a transvestigator because he was just posting like pictures of Drake from like 2011 and then like now, and it's like it's obvious that his nose just aged like that and he didn't have a nose job.
Yeah.
If anything, he got like his jaw and like his cheekbones kind of tweaked up a little bit, but like I don't know, I think that's a big reach and he's kind of rolling with that, and I'm like, this doesn't really make sense. Um, it's just kind of like playground insult, and it doesn't really work. Um, but he does call out what was it? Oh, he claims that he had surgery and that like he doesn't have a six pack anymore because he's kind of like losing it a little bit, so he has to dress up at his shows. I'm like, Rick Ross telling someone that they don't have a six pack is crazy. First off,
That's true.
don't like that. Um, yeah, I think the other one was that Drake sent a cease and desist to French Montana to take a verse off of his latest record, um, which I is true, I think. But I mean, to be honest, it's a good get at Drake, but at the same time, it's it's Mac and Cheese Five by French Montana. Nobody's listening to that, and it was really garbage. The verse leaked after this, and Drake like did a pretty decent verse, and then French Montana came in and just ruined the song so quickly. Um, but yeah, it's an okay diss track. I think, you know, if these two continue to go at it, I'm not sure. It's just kind of distracting from the point that like we need a Kendrick diss track now. Um, I think he just calls him white boy like 17 times in this diss track, and that's pretty much it. Um,
Nice.
so, which I'm people were saying that J Cole dropped out because this would have happened to him too, and it probably would have because J Cole is also mixed. Um,
Uh,
it's a weird thing to get at. I mean, with Drake, it's a little different. I feel like Pusha T already did all this a lot better. And I think you can criticize Drake for it because Drake grew up with his white side of the family his entire life, and then all of a sudden, as soon as he got big and put on this rapper persona, he's like elevating his dad to this level, even though his dad left him like really young and
mm,
didn't be in his life until like he was like the most famous artist on earth.
uh,
So there's definitely like legitimate criticisms to do, but like Pusha T already annihilated his entire family line and explained all that a lot better. So yeah, it, it's also people were like Pusha T's trying to find any kind of opening into this. I'm like, Drake named his disc push-ups. I feel like that's enough. Um, people were like, I hope Pusha T just comes out of nowhere and drops something. I don't think he will. I don't want any more distractions. This has already gotten really messy. I just want to wait for the Kendrick response and see where we go from there.
yeah.
But it's a very exciting time. Like these two have been going at each other in subliminals for like a decade now. You can go back and trace all of the songs between Drake and Kendrick kind of going at each other a little bit. So we're finally getting like a actual like confrontation with it, and it's pretty great. Um, Again, it's hip hop beef. It's dramatic. It's over the top. It's kind of like WWE esque, um, but it's breathing some life into the mainstream hip hop scene because I feel like it's been kind of dull for a little bit. Um, but I'm excited to see what Kendrick can do on a diss record because the scathing verses he writes when they're not directed at anybody are enough. So um, I think we're guaranteed to have a pretty great track coming. Um, I mean, you have a million things you can go at Drake for, like literally. He appropriates every single music genre and then puts that on his records. Brings people up to give them like their number one hits, and then tries to sign them and not do anything with them. The weird underage girl
Mm,
texting thing that he does with every single celebrity
yeah.
for some reason, you know, all of this. You can bring up any of it, and it'll play. Um, so we'll just wait for the Kendrick diss track, and hopefully next week we can talk about that. But again, it's kind of 1-to-1 at this point. I think Drake had a good response. I think Kendrick did a good job just stirring up literally everybody with a 40-second verse on a random feature record. Um, but yeah, I think that's you're caught up on the T for now. Um, but with podcast timing, I'm sure the disc will be out. The Kendrick disc will be out, you know, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um, but
Or at 11
oh
o'clock
well.
tonight.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he'll do like a Friday prime time type thing, but I feel
Mm,
like disc records always just come out at random when nobody's expecting it. It's kind of
yeah.
just like whenever it's done, it just gets uploaded. But yeah, exciting stuff. I'm glad I have stuff to talk about surrounding this because I mean, there's a lot of good music coming out, but it's been a while since we've had like an exciting hip hop moment like this.
That's
Um,
true.
but yeah, that's it. Um, Drake's did a lot better than J Cole, which
Well, I mean,
honestly, it wasn't
anybody could do
surprising to me.
better
I'm just
than
saying.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah. But
I
I didn't mean it.
didn't mean it. It was an accident.
Whoopsie. He did remove the song off of streaming services,
He
by the way,
did?
but only after the first week sales came in for his album, and then he removed it, so it didn't affect the week one sales.
Hey, what a coward.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean the song is really bad. I wouldn't want to listen to that again.
well, yeah, but
You could probably just delete the whole mixtape. I know people still are listening to that. It's still the most mediocre thing. There's still some like really delusional J. Cole fans being like, Cole would have cleared both of them when he literally flopped without having to do anything. So
yeah, do you think J. Cole's gonna fulfill on the promise of the album name?
yeah, I don't know. He deleted one part of it.
That's true.
I don't know. He's breaking a lot of things because he's been, we know his last album is called The Fall Off, and I think that's already happening. So maybe it's a concept album and he's just doing it at the time.
Yeah, it's like he's been like playing this character for a
Performance
while.
art. Yeah, it's all a character.
Yeah. He's like, well, Kendrick does that on every album. I'm gonna one up him.
It was like maybe after this like beef is over and Kendrick is like in the spotlight, maybe he should like drop an album or something. That'd be cool.
That would be pretty cool. The first
When
PG
will it come
Lang
out?
Kendrick
2021?
one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Give me something. I want it to be weird too.
I don't see him doing anything too weird.
I don't know. I want him to have fun.
Well, yeah. That's true. Well, what I would like is a Baby King Kendrick collab album.
Correct.
I think that would be pretty dang epic.
I agree. I would be so there for it.
Yeah, I think so. Or a Kendrick J. Cole collab album. We've all been asking for it for years.
I've always said that's a stupid idea, and people like would always want to ask for it. And then we realized what happened when Kendrick even like someone mentioned J. Cole and he just collapsed. I'm like, this would help. The collab album wouldn't even sound good because I don't think they mesh well together.
No.
No, it's like we have someone who's like kind of lyrical and goes all over the place. And then you have J. Cole that like is kind of lyrical but not really, and kind of melodic but not really.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't mesh well.
That's true.
But I mean, J. Cole can produce for Kendrick. That'd be pretty good. I mean, High Power was a J. Cole production. That's one of Kendrick's best songs. So
Wait, Power was?
High Power.
Oh, High Power.
Section 80.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. They also did that thing Black Friday when they, I think J. Cole rapped over the All Right instrumental and then Kendrick rapped over the, I don't remember what song it was. No Role Models instrumental.
Oh.
That was kind of cool.
That's kind of cool.
I enjoyed that. I loved those back in the day.
Yeah. I like that.
Kendrick still washed him on his own beat, but they were both pretty good.
I like quirky stuff like that. Like when Lil Wayne raps over theme songs or whatever. That's pretty fun. I think. Well, I appreciate the drama update because I did not follow it. I knew that Drake dropped a diss track, but I did not look at the lyrics or anything. I didn't even listen to it, frankly, because it wasn't on Spotify.
Exactly. It's only on YouTube, uploaded by some random guy.
Which is not Drake.
Nope. Just a whole bunch of random people posting it. I think people only found out it was real because the label started copyright striking the videos, and then everybody knew it was real, and then they just never ended up officially dropping it.
Oh, that could be.
Strange times. Hip hop beef in 2024. You have to worry about whether it's an AI or not dropping this. And nobody just puts their thing on YouTube anymore. So
yeah, he just needs to release it for real.
What happened to SoundCloud? People used to do this on SoundCloud all the time.
Or Dat Piff.
You can't get a sample cleared. Dat Piff.
Come on, drop it on Dat Piff.
I hope Kendrick drops it on Dat Piff and actually he'd probably break this site.
Is Dat Piff even a thing anymore?
I don't know. I feel like it's probably struggling to stay alive.
Yeah, probably. On the website, it says embrace the next generation of Dat Piff. So I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I've never been on Dat Piff. I just know that it's the mixtape website.
It is. It's where I used to get the Mac Miller mixtapes. Although people would upload them to SoundCloud, so I wouldn't even have to do that.
Oh, that's true. Well, that's it for drama time. And
that's it. That's
Boy Time podcast. I don't know what's going to happen next week. It's hard to say, really. Just in general, what's going to happen.
Taking it day by day, personally.
Yeah. Yeah. There was an indie world, or there's going to be an indie world on Netflix, and there's been a meme of everybody quote tweeting the indie world announcement with Odyssey 2 It's going to happen, as if it's a Nintendo Direct, and I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Not really funny, but kind of funny. You know?
In a cosmic sort of
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. I finished the original Resident Evil 4, and I just started the new one because it was on sale. It just so happened to go on sale right as I finished the original one, which was lucky. So maybe, I don't think I'll be able to finish it in a week, but maybe I'll do a little compare and contrast next week on the podcast if I finish it. But you should play the original one. It's pretty good. Holds up, I will say. But other than that, nothing planned. I might get another marathon ready at some point because I haven't done one of those in a couple months. It's not going to happen immediately, but at some point. I don't know what it's going to be. It probably won't be a setting again.
desert.
The desert one didn't really. I want him to make a little more sense than that. That one was just like, I want to have a marathon. Let's just do this. I'll put some thought into it next time. But that's it. Listen or watch our older reaction. Lizzie McAlpine's new album. Pretty good record. And pretty good video. So I would say so. And then next week we got Bon Iver's For Emma Forever Ago.
Correct.
So look forward to that, why don't you?
Do it.
And then, if you can believe it or not, we're going back to the wheel. Unless something surprise drops, but you know.
Which is possible.
It's possible, but let's just assume for now that we're going to spin a wheel because we haven't spun a wheel in forever. And I'm so upset about it. I'm not that upset, but I
it'll be exciting.
I am excited. I haven't been on the wheel website in forever. I don't, because it's your pick. Although my yikes aren't much better.
Yeah.
The next yikes I'm gonna pick is Joe Hawley. Oh, geez. I'm just throwing that out there. Exactly. Well, we just get so many requests for it. I think it's about time. But I'm not going to put it in semi-yikes or I think it's going to be a yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't listened to much new stuff. I've been listening to Be the Cowboy, and it's a very good record. And I've also been listening to the Adrian Lenker Cowboy album.
You just cowboyed up.
I'm cowboyed up. I like yeehaw tunes.
2 cowboy albums written by women and listened to by me.
Exactly. Are there any good cowboy albums written by men?
Isn't there that one record with the guy on the cover with the red background?
Oh, you mean the Marty Robbins Gunslinger songs? That's actually true. You got me there. It's a gunfighter ballads and trail songs. The 1951 classic. That's true. That actually is a good album. I have it on vinyl because it was a record store day original. And I thought,
which is this weekend, by the
Oh,
way.
is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I might have to swing by Marv.
I gotta get the 100 Gex Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes? What's Snake Eyes?
It's that little 2 EP thingy that they did a while ago.
Oh, I didn't know they did that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It has 3 songs on it. Wait, it's
You'll
5
like it.
minutes and it's on vinyl?
Yeah, it's a 10-inch.
Oh, okay. I was like, why would they have this as a, well, I guess as a little 10-inch. That's fine.
Might get it.
It doesn't really look
We'll
good.
see.
The cover is like
It's great.
doesn't even like look like letters.
That's true.
I guess
Yeah.
the only thing that I've been listening to is Animals by Pink Floyd. I just listened to it today
Mm,
and it's
okay.
very good. The only
It's
reason
100 out of 100,
Oh,
actually.
it's that good, huh?
It is that good.
Okay, so I listened to it because my uncle owns a record store. Last time I went to the record store, he was like, "Here you go, a gift. It's Animals. It's my
Just gave you
favorite."
animals. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I don't know. He was like, "Is there anything you want?" And I'm like, "Well, I've been looking for like the wall. If you're willing to give me a discounted wall, I wouldn't object." And then he just gave me the wall, and then he was like, "Okay, also I'm gonna give you Animals because it's my favorite, but it's the
Because it's better.
2018 remix one. So I don't know if that's
Oh, it's got the
bad.
weird cover.
Yeah,
Does
I
it
don't
have
know.
the? Oh,
It's the oh, do they not even have it on Spotify?
I thought they had the weird cover on Spotify.
Oh wait, yeah, it's just listed as 1977. Yeah, I listened to that version today, and
Oh,
it's very
interesting.
nice.
I don't know if there's a difference between the two.
I don't know. I think I'll listen to the original, but to
Yeah, listen to the
see
original.
to see,
There's
but
7 more seconds on the 2018 remix.
7 seconds.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what I heard was very good.
Uh-huh.
Very good. I mean,
That's
I
my favorite Pink Floyd.
is it? Okay, so it's you and my
Yes.
uncle's favorite. I have not listened to a whole lot of Pink Floyd. I've heard The Wall, and I think I've heard Dark Side of the Moon, but I don't think I could tell you how one
You did
song
hear it, but
sounds. I
yeah.
did hear it at your house while we were playing Uno one time,
Yes.
but I don't know if I've sat down and listened to Dark Side of the Moon.
That's one of those where, like, when you sit down and listen to it, you will recognize most of the songs, but you won't recognize that that's the song.
That could be. That very well could be. And one of these days I will. But I was just like, I should listen to Animals because I have it on vinyl. And I don't know anything about it. Is it going to be weird and industrial? Not really.
Nope.
It's pretty,
Just
pretty.
Pink Floyd.
Just Pink Floyd. And the vinyl, it came with a booklet, like because it's only one LP. So the other side has like a book, and then there's like behind the scenes pictures of them inflating the pig thing. I'm like, wait, that's real? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it would have to be. It's from the 70s, but like,
It's actually like my favorite album cover ever, too.
it kind of rocks. It's really good.
Not the 2018 one, but the original one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because the Wish You Were Here album is all practical, too. There's no editing in that.
that's true. They actually lit a guy on fire.
Real.
This is pretty crazy. Nobody's ever done that before.
They were the first.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. People have been lit on fire in movies forever.
True.
Yeah, the 2018 Animals cover is really not as good.
It sucks.
It's just like way
I
overdone.
mean, it makes sense, but it sucks.
It just takes all of the ideas and all the subtlety and the original is like,
And just,
get it?
yeah.
Get it? Okay. Yes. But good album. I'll listen to it again tomorrow. I just listened to it for the first time today and it was very nice. Better than I expected. Not that I had any negative conceptions going into it, but that's it.
I mean, you look at a track list and it's 18 minutes, 12 minutes, 10 minutes, and then like a minute song at the front and back.
Well, I didn't know the track length, so I saw that there was
Oh, there you
5
go.
tracks on the whole thing, because
Yeah,
they don't say the or the track lengths on vinyl.
true.
That's true. That's true. But that's it for the podcast. Bye.